right, welcome everybody. Shane Carter here, Hampshire Capital. Along with me, as always, our VP of Investor Relations, Eddie Austin.
Hello, my friend.
Great to see you again, buddy. Great to be on another episode with you.
Likewise, man. Today, I think we're going to get into speaking the language. What does speaking the language look like? All those real estate, what do they call them?
Acronyms.
Yeah. So, speaking the language, sometimes we go to these I was going to say concerts, but conferences. Sometimes they seem like a concert.
Right.
But you can actually speak fluent language in real estate, right? So there's a lot of the times you can really tell when somebody knows what they're talking about just by the language they speak.
Mm-hmm.
And just like when you're talking to a broker, actually knowing the different types and not stumbling can be extremely beneficial to win over a broker when you're looking at CRE, which is
commercial real estate. That's right. That's what we're here to talk
we're
about.
Start from ground zero. Ground zero meaning the very first thing, which is SF, single family.
That's not San Francisco?
No, not San Francisco. It could be. Single family, that's your residence, everyday thing. You're not renting it out. But then we have SFR, and that's single family rental. So let's say, a guy starting out, he buys him a home, he fixes it up or whatever, and then decides, you know what, I need a little bit bigger house. He doesn't sell it. He buys him another house. He rents that one out. So it's a single family home that he's going to rent out. Now it's a single family rental. And then you can, of course, portfolio that. So probably a professional real estate investor, he could probably go out and buy several of these homes. Fix and flipper turns into a guy that wants passive income and decides to start keeping some of these things. And now you've got a portfolio.
That's right. And if you build it from scratch, we call that a BTR. Build to rent.
Yeah, and that's something that there's a lot of professionals doing right now in the real estate world. And they're not doing single family. They're building I've seen some condos the other day. So I was looking at Grow Capitus, and they've got a condo portfolio, and it's a pretty cool model.
Yeah.
It really is.
It is.
And then, then we get into multifamily, the MF. And multifamily, anything above 4 units. And then from there, man, let's talk about loans. So let's talk about the loan terms that we can get into. And one of the biggest things starting out is the LTV.
That's right. Loan to value. Loan to value. Which is, let's describe what that is then.
Okay.
That is the ratio of how much debt you get on the asset compared to its value. Its appraised value is usually what the bank does, or its acquisition value is what we care about, right? So if we buy an asset for $100 million and we get $65 million in debt, we have a loan to value of 65%, just to use easy math, right?
Yep, 100%. And let's go one step further than that. So oftentimes when we are looking at a property or we're pitching to an investor, what is our basis? So that basis, when you're talking about multifamily, what did you purchase per door? What was the basis value? And then we implement a value add strategy. And that value add strategy is where we probably replace some sinks, some floors, paint the walls, and we essentially create more value so we can rent that room at a higher rate. And that's our exiting basis. So we got a basis and then our exit value. What is our basis for exit?
That's right. Yeah, and I guess to be technically clear too, our basis will involve not only our acquisition price, but to your point on a value add deal, the capital, another acronym, CapEx, right, which stands for capital expenditures, which would be the material and labor that we utilize to improve the property. Those capital expenditures will become a part of our original basis as well. So we bought a property for, $100 million. We put in $5 million of CapEx or capital expenditures, and then we sold it 5 years later for, $130 million, right?
Yeah. And also that rolls into our cap rate. So you have a market cap rate and you have a deal cap rate.
Mm-hmm. And what does cap rate stand for? Capitalization rate. That's right. Yeah. And what is a capitalization rate? It's really just a measure of value. So for what you're buying and what the stream of income that you're getting, where we basically buy income producing assets, so we're buying income streams. And what is the value of that income stream? That is essentially what the capitalization rate is showing us.
Absolutely. And then from there, we have another thing that's extremely important, that OCC, the occupancy.
Mm-hmm. So very important.
Yes. And then the occupancy, here's the two metrics that really get you. You've got occupancy and then you have DCR. Mm-hmm. So that's where things can get funky, and the bank really care about DCR because that's debt coverage ratio.
Yes.
So when occupancy drops and your gross revenue comes down and your occupancy is bad, your DCR gets tight. And I think national standard's 1.25 that the banks like to see. So 1.25. Yeah. So that's the metric that you got to be hitting. So you want to be buying properties at least 90% occupied.
Yep. Yeah. And let me add on a little bit more to what you just went through, because that's a great beginning. But I just want to point out one thing, which is on one side of things, the economic occupancy is different from your physical occupancy. And to me, that is an extremely important difference, because I don't want to say I don't care about the physical occupancy, because I do, but it is not as a great indicator. It's not one of the KPIs that I really measure. I measure economic occupancy, which is, let's say you've got a 100-unit asset and it's 95% occupied. That's great. You've got 95 apartments that are rented, that are leased and that have people in them physically. Mm-hmm. But what if your economic occupancy is 88%? Well, that means that you've only got 88 paying customers or tenants in that, of those 95 occupied units. So you got 7 folks who need to be evicted because they're not paying their rent. And so that's why economic occupancy, to me, is a very, very important difference between physical occupancy, which is important, but not as important as economic. Because at the end of the day, this is a cash flow business, and if you don't have the cash flow, then your physical occupancy doesn't matter. So on DCR, it's often also called DSCR, which is debt service coverage ratio, because it is the debt service, or the actual amount that you need to pay to service your debt on a monthly basis, that you need to have coverage over. So your debt service coverage ratio is how much income, or net operating income, it's another acronym we'll go over, NOI, how much income, net operating income, is the property producing to cover your debt service by a minimum of that 1.25 that you mentioned. So that's a very, very important metric for banks and for us as well. And we definitely pay really close attention to that.
Yes.
So sorry, I interrupted you. Go on.
So let's dive into the first few line items on the T12. And what is a T12? That is your profit and loss statement rolling over a trial of 12 months.
Yeah.
Or trail of 12 months. And the first thing we see on our T12 is GPR, gross potential rent. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, we have concession.
Yep.
We also have bad debt.
And vacancy. Yep.
Yep. So we have, what is the gross potential? And then there's that spread, or the delta between actual rent, what it should be, and then the bad debt of how much concession we have, or non-paying tenants. Mm-hmm. And then from there, we have RUBS, which your RUBS program comes from anything laundry, pet fees, stuff like that. That's all in your RUBS program.
And what does RUBS stand for? Ratio Utility Billing System, or service, depending on which one you say. But it's a ratio of billing your utilities. So that's what the RUB stands for. It's a way to bill back for some of the utilities that are maybe more master metered, aren't individually metered. And so you ratio that out. Some systems do it on a per square foot basis, and the ratio of your apartment to the cost of that utility. is what you get billed for. And the ratio is also sometimes governed by various states. In other words, you can't bill back for 100%, and certainly you can't bill back for more than 110% or something like that. So it can't become a massive profit center. And there's a lot of controls that are on that in terms of the additional income that you can get for a RUBS bill back system. But that's another good acronym right there, RUBS.
Yeah. And another one, when we get down towards the bottom of this, we derive at NOI, which is net operating income. Mm-hmm. Now that does not, guys, include your debt. So that is everything before you pay your debt service, right? The actual when you're paying your loan. So that is all your gross potential rent, all the expenses related to the property, and then you're at your NOI. So that is your net operating income for month or year. Mm-hmm. And then from there, we get into return metrics. And those can be, so number one, how do you get cash on cash? Mm-hmm. So cash on cash is NOI minus debt service is your actual cash on cash, correct? That's your cash flow of the property.
Well, yeah, cash on cash is a calculation of your investment, and then equated to or measured against how much money you're getting back for your investment over a given period of time. So that's what the cash on cash is measuring, and that acronym is COC, and sometimes you see it as big C, little o, big C. That's what that means. It's cash on cash.
And how do we calculate cash on cash? It is invested income, so your down payment, correct?
Yeah, well, it's a metric of return for the monies that you're investing, right? So it's really a cash on cash is a measurement of how much cash you're getting back for the cash you're putting out for your investment.
Yep. 100%. And then we have IRR. Mm-hmm.
Yep, your internal rate of return. Now that is a little bit more of a complicated return model. It's technically the rate of return that you're getting for your capital investment or for your equity investment, but it has a factor of time associated with it. So the time value of money is a factor in your IRR calculation. And frankly, we just use Excel for that. It's got a great XIRR calculation for that. But it's effectively a rate of return on your money as measured on an annual basis, and that changes over time. So the faster you get your capital back and any returns, the higher your internal rate of return, which is what IRR stands for, internal rate of return. The higher your internal rate of return is going to be, the faster you get that money back. The longer it goes out in time, because of that time value, the present value, net present value of any capital invested, it's going to degrade over time, and your internal rate of return is therefore going to be a bit lower.
Right. And then the other one we have is ARR.
Yeah, your average rate of return, or AAR, your average annual return. And that's just more of a simplified calculation of, hey, I put in $100,000. In 5 years, I got back $200,000. That's, 100. That's my principal plus $100,000. I got a $100,000 return in 5 years. That's divided by 5. So I got a 20% average annual return. It's a very simplified way of showing what that return is without calculating net present value and doing an IRR calc.
Right. Now, definitely that number looks a lot bigger than IRR. Yes. And usually gets people excited. And I've noticed if you've looked at any of the pitch decks and stuff like that, and the OMs and stuff like that, people are switching from that because right now IRR is lower on properties. So they're using that ARR to boost that up because it is a bigger number.
It is.
But it's a different return.
It's completely different, and it shouldn't be looked at as the same as IRR because they're completely different calculations and completely different values.
Right, 100%. Is there anything we missed we can think
of? Boy, we hit the big ones. Maybe no, I think we did hit the big ones.
I think we got the good ones. These are the ones I think that our crowd or our tribe will be resonating with is these topics right here, these things we talked about.
Yeah, look, and if there isn't anything we covered that you have a question on, put it in the comments below. We'll be sure to reply to it and get you that response and get you that answer. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you if there's something we missed here.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, as we do these videos, we're rolling out videos every single week, same time, same day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, come up with, if you go through our channel and you see that we haven't covered something yet and you're like, hey, we would love to hear about this, we will gladly sit down, whiteboard it out, and go, okay, we're going to do that next.
Yeah.
Because, we're just shooting from the hip here a little bit. We've got a little bit of a list, but what we mostly want to do is add value to you guys out here. So if there's something you're like, I would like you guys to talk about this, or can you touch on this subject? We'd be glad to. Just drop it in the comment box. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and also hit the little notification bell. That way you stay up to date. As soon as we drop a video, it hits your inbox, and there's a new video online.
That's right. All right, Eddie. Well, thanks as always. Another great episode. Appreciate it, and we'll definitely catch you on the next one.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right.